Okay, tell me if this sounds familiar. You found a great story, you made a solid plan and went out to shoot the thing, then you wrapped and headed home feeling like everything was right in the world. But then that night you start pulling cards out of your cameras and realize that you're not really sure what to do next. Obviously you have to back things up, every filmmaker knows that, but the best professional workflow isn't all that obvious. Maybe when you're just dealing with a couple of cards, things aren't so bad, but as you progress in your filmmaking career and start taking on bigger and bigger projects, trust me, you absolutely need to have an ironclad system in place for data wrangling or you're gonna get yourself in trouble. Like right now I'm working on a big budget TV series and we're shooting with dozens of cameras every day, which means an insane amount of cards to back up. I mean, there's an entire office in this building that's only dedicated to media management, which I'll show you in a second, and that should tell you just how important it is in the filmmaking process. And after a quick scan of YouTube while researching this video, I realized that there isn't all that much information out there on how to do this the right way. So let's fix that. The good news is that it's not really complicated to get a bulletproof backup system in place, but you do need to start with the right foundations. So in this video, I'm going to show you how we manage media on a large production like the one I'm shooting now, and then also show you a more scaled down version of that same system that's a little bit more realistic for smaller teams. By the end, you're going to have a solid backup pipeline from card to hard drive all the way through to your editing program that you can apply to your own shoots to make sure you stay organized while also never worrying about losing footage ever again. And for anyone who's been following along the last couple of months, we finally wrapped this show after 110 days in the field. So this is going to be my last post from up here in the Arctic, meaning that if all goes to plan, I'll finally be home next week. So thanks for sticking with me through all the rough audio, bad lighting, and increasingly scruffy physical appearance for the last few months. And now let's get right into the video. Okay, so to start off, I am in the media management room of the show I'm working on right now with Hank, who is our DIT. Hank, first off, what is a DIT?
DIT can be multiple different things, but the main job as a DIT media manager will be to get cards from production and offload them so they're backed up and ready for post-production to begin their workflow.
So literally it means digital imaging tech, right? And it
yes.
Can be, it can be anything from doing on-set coloring to backing up media, but generally in the doc world, we don't have on-set colorists, so pretty much just refers to someone who's handling all the backups. On this show, how many cards would you see on a big day?
Well, on the show, we have about 30 cameras in our system. So on a full day of shooting, we could see up to 11 cameras come in with multiple cards per camera. So we're looking at upwards of 20 to 30 cards on the days that are the heaviest.
Yeah, so 30 cards a day. If you were one-man banding it without a DIT, you could be sitting there for, it takes you almost all day.
Yeah, just to get stuff backed up.
Most normal people, myself included, when I'm not on like a $10 million show and there is no DIT, I'm not doing anything like this, but this is an example of what things can be when you sort of balloon up to a certain level. Right off the bat, I see you're running a program here, ShotPut Pro. Basically what ShotPut's doing is it's copying the footage onto multiple hard drives at once, and then it's also giving you a report at the end to tell you whether or not there were any issues. So it'll just say basically, yes, this was copied identically 2 or 3 or however many times you ask it to. And when you're dealing with shows with massive budgets like this where there's insurance policies in place for losing footage, you really can't take any chances, and you're 30 cards a day for 100+ days straight. Me personally, do I use ShotPut Pro every day when I've shot 2 or 3 cards? Probably not. Should I? Probably yes, but it does take longer. It's just, if you have a high stakes scenario where what you're shooting absolutely cannot be lost and you need to be 100% certain that what you copied is exactly what's going onto the drive, then ShotPut's maybe a way to go. Is that a helicopter?
Yeah.
Helicopter coming in, stand by. So if you were a solo operator shooter, what could you do to create a good backup system if you don't have a massive post-production department behind you?
As a solo shooter, you just want to make sure that you are organized and that you have a system in place. Once you're done shooting for the day, you take your cards, and it's the first thing you do. You don't go to bed, you don't wait till the next morning. You offload and back up your cards. You start with a project, so whatever you're shooting, and then you go by date, and then you go by camera, and if you have an audio you put that drone and so on. You just have everything for your cameras, and so you just go day by day, backing up footage each day, each night after every shoot, so that nothing piles up and that you don't shoot over cards.
Basically, you want to have everything divided by day, camera, and card number, and how many times does a normal person need to back up?
Having something backed up at least 2 times is a good practice. 3 times is best practice.
And then last, for a lot of people out there, they probably have never heard of the position of DIT before, but this is like a paying job on large crews. So how did you get into this, and sort of what opportunities are out there?
Yeah, so I think media managing is a great way for people to start to get into camera department. You can make a career out of this. You could make it your full time. You could do it for TV shows, for movies for long periods of time, and there are DITs and media managers who make good money. You are constantly interacting with the camera department, and if you want a good way to get your foot in the door that maybe is a little bit higher than a PA, then this would be a good opportunity. It's pretty simple. If you're an organized person, it doesn't take a lot of kit to get into. A lot of times they just ask you to have a laptop and the software, and that production will provide hard drives. And so your job is just to be organized and to make sure these things are backed up. So I think the threshold of getting into it is pretty easy, and that's important.
And you need to pay attention though, right? Because if there's technical problems happening through the footage, if there's a DIT on set, it's no longer really the DP's responsibility to notice these things. You have to see that they're happening and tell us so that we can correct. How could people go about trying to get a gig as a DIT?
I think your best opportunity would be to find established assistant camera, because a lot of the time in documentary, a lot of times there won't be budget for just a media manager. So if you're an AC, get good at media managing. Because crews are so small, you want to be multifunctional. You want to be able to do multiple different things. So I'd say if you're already interested in camera stuff, make sure you know how to back up, and make sure you tell whoever's hiring you that you're interested in it, that you can do it, and that people are more likely to bring you on board.
So don't sleep on DITing. A lot of opportunities out there, especially on bigger budget stuff, and it can be a great way to get on those big sets. You get paid, and it's an amazing network opportunity. There's been probably a dozen times already on this show where we've been stretched thin in the camera department, and we've just thrown a camera at Hank and been shoot this. So you are getting shooting time as well, and who knows, maybe even a camera operator credit by the end.
You never know.
Okay, so that's sort of a big perspective on how you do things at a really, really big level. But now I'll show you how I do things on a more sort of realistic level, and how you can incorporate some of these ideas to create a bulletproof backup workflow for most normal run-and-gun solo shooters. Okay, so we just saw what a really high-end setup would look like talking to Hank, but for most of you, that's probably not realistic. Even for me, myself, on my own projects, I don't have anything like that kind of workflow. So let's take a second. We're back in my room, bit dingy, bit dark, but we'll make do. Still up here in the Arctic. It's day 105 today, so we're just doing what we can to get through it. But a more realistic workflow for a one-man band or maybe a really small crew might look something like this. The very first thing I do is get some sort of container. It can be anything. I'm going to use these little tiny cereal bowls. You can use a Tupperware container, it could be an envelope, it could even just be a big box of tape, but you really want a super clear way to identify where the cards for ingest is and when you've already finished something. So an in and an out pile. So the very first thing I'm going to do is get a bit of gaff tape and put some in and out labels on these bowls. It might sound really obvious, but at least if you do it this way, there can be no mistaking. It might be really late at night, maybe you've been shooting all day and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're doing these backups, and you don't want there to be any doubt in your mind which ones are to be ingested and which ones are good to be formatted. Okay, so we've got our super high-tech in and out bowls. The next thing I'm going to do is take all of the shot media and just dump it in. And I'm already making kind of a mistake here, because best practices would be to label these cards. As soon as you shoot them and take them out of the camera, put a little piece of paper tape on them and say what camera and what card number they are. Because right now I've got 3 FX3 cards here that aren't labeled, and I'm gonna have to go in and check each one and make sure that I have the right order so that I know which one is the first, second, and third shot cards. Just start out on the right foot and label them when they come out of the camera and you won't have this problem. All the shot media goes in here. And then the very next step is to plug in our hard drives and get a really solid folder structure, kind of like Hank talked about, and we'll set that up here so that you see what it looks like. So the very first thing I do when dealing with a completely blank hard drive like this is just make one root folder for the project that everything else is going to go into. Maybe this is the only project on this hard drive and you don't need to do this. Maybe it's obvious, you don't need to name it, but it's best practice. Just make a folder for the new project, and then inside it, we're going to put all of our individual cards. So when naming a folder, there's no standard, like there's no rule book that you have to follow, but almost every editor I've ever worked with wants to know a couple basic pieces of information. They want to know the date, the camera, and the card. And so that's all the information that I'm going to put into each folder. So I'm going to start with the date and I'm going to do it out long form. So I'm going to do November 23rd, 2023. There's the date. And then the first card I'm going to ingest is from the FX3, which in this hypothetical scenario is the A-cam. So I'll do A-cam. Some people like to type out the name of the camera itself. I do A-cam, B-cam, C-cam. If you are running on shoots with a lot of different types of cameras, maybe it's easier to call this FX3 and the next one FX9 and the next one A7S3 or whatever. Either one will work, but just say what camera this is coming from and then the card number. And that's it. That's the basic folder structure. If you're on a Mac computer, it's really easy in Finder to open up different tabs, and I find this makes the whole process a lot easier. I'd open up a tab for each of the hard drives and then a tab for the media that you're ingesting. And so in this case, I'm gonna go to this FX3 card. I'm gonna grab the clips, which in this case are still photos, but this is just an example, you get the point. Grab the clips, and I'm gonna put them into the right folder. And then I'm gonna repeat. When this card's done, it's gonna go over here into the out, and then I'm just gonna move through the cards one by one by one until everything is backed up. You saw earlier on Hank's setup, he had like an entire rack of card readers, and if you're dealing with 30, 40 cards every day, then you definitely want to be able to ingest more than one at once. So in general, just get the best card reader that you can, ideally one that connects with USB-C or Thunderbolt so that you get the best transfer speeds. Use fast hard drives as well. That's going to make this whole process go faster. So now we'll jump forward a little bit to a time when all the cards have been copied, and you can see I've got 5 cards ingested, 3 from the A-cam and 2 from the B-cam. Then I'm just going to take this entire project and commit heresy again and just drag and drop it to clone it. I know this might make some people nervous. Do what you feel is right for the project you're working on. To me, the savings in time is worth it, and I've never had a problem. So we're just getting through this example quickly, but use ShotPut Pro if you want, or get mad at me in the comments, whatever makes you feel better. Okay, so we've cloned the first hard drive to the second hard drive. Now, just as one layer of added security, I'm gonna click Get Info on both of these drives and then compare the amount of data used to make sure that they are more or less the same. They're slightly off by, it looks like 900 bytes or something like that, which is negligible. In my experience, it means nothing. So for my standards, this is a clean copy. This is where a program like ShotPut comes in handy because it's going to give you a detailed report and give you 100% certainty, yes, this is all copied over, but it's up to you whether that amount of extra time is worth that or not. For me, this is enough. So it's cloned. You're going to do this every single day at the end of the day before you go to bed. And it might be really tempting to put it off and say, I'm going to wait until tomorrow to do it, but this is always a bad idea. Just get the data backed up, get it copied twice, and then you can have peace of mind, and there's no way anything is going to go wrong after that. Okay, so that's it. A really simple but effective backup workflow. You saw earlier it can be much more complicated, like with Hank's whole setup, but it doesn't have to be that complicated. You just need to get the relevant information down and you need to stay organized. So learning how to do this earlier on in your career is a huge benefit, both because it's going to minimize your chances of losing footage and because it's going to make editors happy when they get hard drives from you. But beyond that, there are work opportunities here. Like if you're earlier on in your career and you can use shot put and you can handle professional backup workflows, then that's something that's going to make you easier to hire. Or you could get a job like Hank explained earlier as a dedicated media manager on big sets, and that's going to get you exposure to large productions and introduce you to DPs and directors who could maybe go on to hire you later and maybe bump you up to camera operator and just generally expand your network. So there's a million reasons why learning backup workflows is a good idea. They don't have to be complicated, but they do need to be consistent. See ya.